Good morning, everybody. This is Sandeep Agarwal from Pure Indian Foods. With me, I have my colleague Courtney Rose. And today's guest here is Dr. Ram Mohan Rao. And Dr. Rao has been a good friend of mine for over a decade now. And it's always such a pleasure to just see him. Just seeing him at conferences just pleases me and pleases my heart. So, Dr. Rao, namaste. I'm so excited to have you on this talk with me.
Namaste, Sandeep. Namaste, Courtney. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be seeing you. And I'm excited to be here.
Very good. So Dr. Rao has just published this book, and I'm very excited. This is Good Living Practices, the best from Ayurveda, yoga, and modern science for achieving optimal health, happiness, and longevity. Dr. Rao, I think the timing of this book could not have been better. So, we are in this middle of this pandemic for the last several months. Everybody has been quarantined. The life has changed forever. And I want to learn from you, from this wisdom that you have. So when did you think about writing this book?
So if I have to look back and say when I started thinking about this book, this was about, I would say, maybe 6 to 7 years ago. And the seeds for this book was laid partly from the community talks that I was giving. I'm a neuroscience researcher, and I work at this institute called the Buck Institute for Research on Aging. This is in a place called Novato, and this is 25 miles north of San Francisco.
Okay.
It's the only research institute that is focusing on age and age-associated diseases. And one of the things that the community wanted from our institute is that the scientists from the institute, they come and give community talks to all the people about what we do, okay? Instead of keeping everything as a secret. So every 6 months, the scientists from the institute were going around the community, the county, the state, and giving talks about what was happening in the institute. This was a time when I was working on Alzheimer's disease and how memory loss comes with age. And so most of my talks were geared towards understanding structure of the brain and function of the brain as we age. And then I would then move into the actual work that I was doing, which is on Alzheimer's disease. So I started researching on Alzheimer's, I think, back in the 80s when I was doing my PhD. My PhD was in neuroscience, and even though it was not related to Alzheimer's, the work that I did actually partly related to Alzheimer's, mainly because the first drug that came about, which was not very successful, but still it was okay drug, and the pathway that it affected in Alzheimer's disease was a pathway that I studied for my PhD program. All right, and then I moved to this country and I joined the Mayo Clinic, where I started looking closely into the structure of brain and function. And then when I moved to California, to the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, that's where I started focusing only on Alzheimer's.
I did not also know that how you have been spending your time researching about Alzheimer's. So Courtney, I think you have something to ask about Alzheimer's, don't you?
I did want to ask. My grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in either his late 50s or early 60s. And unfortunately, he passed away soon after that. But people always talk about what's the history in your family. So I have a history of my grandfather having Alzheimer's, and I don't know if there's, what sort of genetic predisposition there is for that for me, but I was interested in learning more about your research and like what sort of mental exercises I can do, or what should I be doing to prevent that from happening. Even now, like I'm in my late 20s, so.
Now, it's interesting you talk about genetics. Genetics is one small component of Alzheimer's because it's about like maybe 5 to 10% of people with genes may have a predisposition to Alzheimer's. So which means that the rest of the people that suffer from Alzheimer's, it's coming from some other conditions, other things that they do, all right? The first description of Alzheimer's was made in 1901. This was by a German neuropathologist by the name Alois Alzheimer. In fact, because of his name, the disease got the name from him. Now, turn forward we are now to what, 2020, more than 110 years, and believe it or not, we still don't have a drug for Alzheimer's.
Wow.
Okay, so which means that whatever drugs we are researching on, or whatever approaches we are taking, is not the right approach. Okay, so 10 years ago, my collaborator, who is a neurologist, Dr. Dale Bredesen, and we sat together and we said, what exactly is wrong? Where are we going wrong with this condition? Why are we not coming up with a drug? Every drug that has come to the clinical trials, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2, or some of them even phase 3, they had to be abandoned because they were not doing the right kind of thing for these patients with memory loss. So that's when we realized that it's much more complex than what we think as a simple disease. And so 10 years ago, Dr. Dale Bredesen and we put together a comprehensive program that addresses not just the memory loss, but all the other associated factors. So we talked about gut health, we talked about the gut microbiome, we talked about the bone health, we talked about physical conditions, we talked about the heart health, we talked about skin conditions, we talked about oral hygiene. So with all these, and it's interesting because nobody thought of that, but now we know that the brain has got a nexus with all these organs, which means that in Alzheimer's condition, when all these fail, it results in memory loss. So the program that we have is not a drug-based program. It's purely a program that addresses your metabolic health, the gut. It addresses your microbiome. It addresses your digestion. It addresses your physical activity. It addresses your some of the parameters that go off the tangent, like zinc and vitamin B12 and vitamin D and all that stuff. And of course, we also bring in mental exercises, because we know that that's a very important part of Alzheimer's. And then because of my background in Ayurveda and yoga, we also brought in Ayurveda, we brought in yoga, we told them to do meditation, we told them to do pranayama, and then we started giving them custom-based herbal formulations. We told them to go for massages. So it's a long and big program, but the good thing is 6 months down the line, when they stuck the program, they were able to get back their memory and they were able to perform their normal functions.
That's incredible.
That's phenomenal. I'm very, very impressed. What component of Ayurveda and yoga, Dr. Rao, did you include in this program? Could you please give us some examples?
So one of the things that we noticed is that most of these people have very less cerebral blood flow. So the blood flow into the brain is decreased. And the brain, unfortunately, unlike other organs, cannot remain without a constant source of oxygen. Okay, even 15 seconds that you deprive your brain of oxygen, it can create a lot of problems. And the oxygen comes through blood flow, right? So you have to have a normal blood flow. And these people have a very low cerebral blood flow. Now there is no medication to improve blood flow. Okay, so what we did is we told them to do yoga asanas, because yoga asanas improve blood flow. Okay, now you may say, why not physical exercise? They can do physical exercise as well, but there are certain poses in yoga where your head is beneath the heart. Okay, so when you put your head beneath the heart, or the heart is above the head, sort of partial or full inversions. Okay, in those inversions, we believe that there is increased cerebral blood flow. The other thing is, a lot of the people who have minor strokes in their head, very minor strokes that doesn't develop into full-fledged symptoms, will have problems with balance. Okay, and over time, this can lead to memory loss. So we tell them to improve their balance by using one-legged balance poses that is part of the yoga asanas, as you see. With regard to Ayurveda, the things that we told them was timely diet. So we were very, very strict about the diet, what they take in. So how to take the diet, what to take, when to take. So all these are part of the Ayurvedic, so to say. And of course, these are supported by evidence-based studies now, okay? And then of course, we told them to, if possible, to do Ayurvedic massages with suitable herbal oils. And then the other thing is NASIA, intranasal administration. One thing from our research we know is that one of the reasons why drugs fail is because the brain, unlike the other organs, is very privileged. Not all drugs that you take, either intravenous or oral, reaches the brain, because the brain has got a barrier. And Ayurvedic people knew this. I mean, the forefathers, they knew this. So they knew that there's only one area of the brain where anything you send it, it'll enter the brain. And that is the area that is adjacent to your nose. Okay, it's
Oh,
called
interesting.
the occipital. The olfactory lobes. The olfactory lobes is the area that ends with the sinuses and enters the brain. Okay, that's the only area. It's a very small, tiny area, but that doesn't have the barrier. So anything you put through the nose enters the brain straight. Okay, and the first area of the brain that is adjacent to the olfactory lobules is the hippocampal area. The hippocampal area is the area that is involved in memory. So what we did was we customized these herbal formulations that we told them to take intranasally that will directly go into their hippocampal area or to the brain. So, that was another Ayurvedic intervention we told them to do. So that's how we brought in Ayurveda and yoga.
Wonderful. Now, in Ayurveda, there is very big emphasis on dinacharya, daily routine, and I see that in your book you have laid out certain things to be done. So I know that your book has hundreds of these ideas or tips. Since I want to tell our listeners few tips that you can share with them as to what they can do. Obviously, purchasing the book and learning everything that you are recommending in this book is the best idea. But could you share some things that we can learn and benefit from them right away?
Now there are thousands of books on Ayurveda. There are hundreds and hundreds of books on yoga. Okay, there are plenty of books on physical exercise. There are so many books on managing emotions and all that. And yet, as a society, we're all suffering. We're all suffering from all kinds of health and diseases. So why is that? The reason being that any book on, let's say, on eating or diet, okay, they give you a lot number of recipes, but then they don't tell you how to address the mind. They don't tell you how to address the emotions. They just talk about diet as a diet alone, a standalone thing. Okay. Same thing with exercise. When you see people with yoga or people, reading books on physical exercise, the idea that one gets is if you do your exercises or if you do your yoga regularly, you're perfectly all right. You don't have to worry about diet. You don't have to worry about your emotions. Okay. And the same thing with emotions as well. There are books that will tell you how to manage your emotions, but then they don't talk about diet. They don't talk about physical exercise. So the question is, let's say you have a good practice of physical exercise. You do like 2 to 3 hours of physical exercise daily. But then if your diet is all over the place, and if you're emotionally, if you're way out, let's say you're very angry, then that physical exercise is not going to help you at all. I call it in my book as a fractionated life. If you lead a fractionated life, you are going to suffer from any kind of problems. Okay. On the other hand, if you keep all the three entities together and operate in that fashion, you are going to have optimal health.
So I will highly recommend your book to our listeners.
Thank you so much.
It's available on Amazon, and I will put a link. We will put a link on this video and in the description of this video. And we will also link to your YouTube channel. You mentioned that you have these small tips for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to show it to my kids and to my friends.
Thanks so much, Sandeep.
So thank you, Dr. Rao,
once
again.
Namaste.
And once this pandemic is over, I look forward to seeing you in person at a conference.
Absolutely. I look forward to that too.
Okay. Thank you. Enjoy.
All right.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.